You are live. Welcome to the stream. I'm just acknowledging that we're 8 minutes and 35 minutes late. We had a breakdown with StreamYard. Hopefully everything is now working. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you can see the stream and if it's working for you. Something was not working with the internet, StreamYard. I don't know. It's weird. I'm a conspiracy theorist and I could generate any number of conspiracy theories about it. But I'm not going to do that. Today we're talking about, first of all, welcome to the Vaishnava Voices podcast. This is a conversation, how to powerfully participate in a cult. This is our third episode. My name is Sitapati Das.
My name is Dana Devi.
And I'm going to put my scarf on to keep myself warm and cover up any off-brand brands that I might be wearing. How to powerfully participate in a cult. The first episode we talked about that we assert that it is inevitable for a human being to be in a cult. Inevitable means it cannot be avoided. A human being is always in a cult. And if you are not in a cult, it means that you are a fully brainwashed member. When you can be flat, and Tim Marwick asked, where does flat come from? What does it mean? I have a theory about that, but to create that word, it means that you have no emotional charge around it. You're not resisting it. You're not making it mean anything. It just is what it is. You know, like it's now 2:40 and I'm flat that it's 2:40. I don't have any doubt about that. No, it's not really 2:40 or anything about that. It's just 2:40 p.m. here in New Zealand. Flat, you know, when you can just be with and just be no significance about it, completely own the fact that you're in a cult, then what becomes available to you is participating powerfully in the cult.
Yes.
That was episode 1. And we talked about Hare Krishna, we talked about Landmark, and we talked about the cult that's not a cult, the global satanic cult, which most people are low-level members in without understanding what it is that they're actually in. That was episode 1. Episode 2 was how to powerfully participate in the Krishna cult. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement in the West, he completely flat about the whole thing. My father and my forefathers were in this Krishna cult. I was raised in the Krishna cult. There's no problem with it. And how to powerfully participate in the Krishna cult. That was yesterday's episode. Today's episode is a Hare Krishna perspective on the Landmark Forum. So we're going to talk about
What topic?
Participating in the Landmark Forum, which is a 3.5-day personal development course, participating in further Landmark courses, and then we're going to go into leading Landmark's courses as a Hare Krishna. Now, as far as I'm aware, I am the Hare Krishna in the world who has done the most Landmark courses and gone to the deepest levels of Landmark, the highest levels of Landmark leadership. I don't know of any other Hare Krishna devotee. I know a lot of Hare Krishna devotees who have done the Landmark Forum. I know a lot of Hare Krishnas who've gone on to do the seminar, the advanced course. I know a number of Hare Krishnas who have done the self-expression and leadership program. And those 4 together, so you do the forum, it's a 3.5-day personal development course. Included in that is a free 10-session seminar, coaching to, depending on your context, expand the breakthroughs that you created in the Landmark Forum, or to further indoctrinate you into Landmark is another context that people are getting into. The advanced course is another 3.5-day course that you can do. And then the final one is a 3-month course called the Self-Expression and Leadership Program, where you develop a community project. And that 4 parts there constitute the curriculum for living. You're now a graduate of the Landmark's curriculum for living. You've done the whole course, the whole curriculum for living. Prahlad's done the whole curriculum for living. A number of devotees have done the complete curriculum. And then beyond that, you can go into becoming a leader of Landmark's programs. And the beginning of that is an 8-month course called the Introduction Leaders Program, where you're trained to lead the introduction to the Landmark Forum. And then another kind of avenue you can take is you could become a coach on the Self-Expression and Leadership Program. So you basically do the program again another 3 months, but this time you're a coach. And then you could become a head coach. So you do the program again. Now, instead of coaching 5 participants, you're coaching 5 coaches who coach 5 participants.
Mm-hmm.
It's another opportunity for you to develop yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any. Well, Prahlad has coached on the self-expression and leadership program. I don't know of any other devotees who have coached. It's not to say that there aren't any. I know of devotees who have done the Introduction Leaders program.
Mm-hmm. I
know of devotees who have even become introduction leaders. I myself was an introduction leader for 5 years. And then I went on further to become, I entered into the self-expression and leadership program, leader program. So I was training to lead the self-expression and leadership program. And I was an apprentice, and I was about to lead my first program in 2020 when the pandemic hit. That was the next step for me in that leadership pathway. And I was on the leadership pathway to become a landmark forum leader. That's how they train people. So we're going to talk about the course, the landmark forum. We're going to talk about doing further courses at Landmark, and then we're going to talk about being a leader at Landmark.
And then
with an intersection with like being a devotee. You know, in a recent Landmark forum, I think it was the last Landmark forum in New Zealand, there was a Hare Krishna devotee in there. And then, you know, that afterwards they wanted to, they're not a they, them, but, you know, we're just using gender neutral pronouns. They had a specific gender. But they wanted to, you know, talk about that. Like, how does this fit together with Hare Krishna, the Landmark Forum? And, you know, and having conversations with devotees before they do the Landmark Forum, they have that concern as well, or that question. How do these two things fit together? Anything that you want to say before we launch into those 3 levels?
Yeah, one of my observations about, you know, me training myself as a leader and being in communication with people, you know, to invite them to come to home introductions. What I was pressing is that the devotees have some sort of like a resistance to this, like not sure if it's fear of like, you know, will that be affecting my religious beliefs or my path or spiritual path? They see kind of like, you know, there may be a conflict that they're not fully powerful to say, what is that? And let me inquire into this. And the other thing I notice here is their way of being like, Krishna consciousness is powerful and nothing else is superior to this. And close the doors to developing as a human beings, you know, and looking into like what is in there for me that is stopping me to be fully myself, or even questioning themselves that question, you know, like.
Remember, we're using this microphone. So
yeah.
Generate.
Okay. So asking themselves that question. So there is this thing this bubble that there is maybe is fear of like, or you know, Krishna consciousness is everything and all. There's no disagreement there. It is. And as a human beings, we also have this world of anarthas that we're dealing with every single day. And how the Landmark Forum is so powerful to pierce these anarthas or to see these anarthas so you can participate in your religious group, in your spiritual life powerfully. And that's something that I come across when I was talking to devotees. It's like they freak out.
I don't think that is unique to Hare Krishna devotees.
Yeah.
You'll find human beings, you know, you'll find other people who say, oh no, I go to my church and that does this for me, you know? And I would go further to say that you'll find people who are in the cult that's not a cult and they don't know that they're in a cult. They also, it will occur for them in a similar way that this is like a competitor or it's going to occupy the same space in my life, but they can't articulate it in the same way.
Right. Yeah.
They can't say it like that because they have like an undeclared or an undistinguished membership in a religious cult, because every human being has the religious impulse and it must be answered for the human being. You know, that was in the first episode. I pointed to that purport in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam that says that, an argument against, God and belief in God is that, it's just a psychological crutch for people who need it.
Mm-hmm.
And, Haridananda Das Goswami in his commentary, he says about that, he's saying that we can see that human beings have needs. They need air, they need light, they need water,
Mm-hmm.
they need food, and these things exist. So human needs and things that actually exist correspond. So if human beings have a need for God, then that means that God exists. And I say that the argument is weaker than that because human beings have a need for belief in God, which means that belief in God exists. In other words, human beings have a religious impulse and it needs to be answered. And when people are answering their religious impulse, but they're not clear that that's what's happening, that's when you end up in this situation where you're not powerfully participating because you are not being fully authentic or fully understanding or fully self-aware about what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so the Landmark Forum, Rick Ross, cult educator, he says about the Landmark Forum, and I got this from Brian Nord's podcast. He's a former Landmark program leader and staff member. He spoke with Rick Ross on the phone, and Rick Ross said that doing the Landmark programs as a consumer is not joining a cult. They're just personal development programs. But if you go into Landmark leadership, then it has some of the characteristics of a high control organization that's a bit culty.
Mm-hmm.
So starting at the very first point, which is participating in a Landmark program, particularly the Landmark Forum. So the way I kind of put it is I say that, if you go to the Hare Krishna restaurant and you have a meal, you go there and you eat some rice and some, halava, yeah, pakoras, people here, they'll call it a curry.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make you a Krishna cult member. You're just a customer at the restaurant. Now, the guy who's cooking the meal might be a fully sold out Krishna cult member.
Mm-hmm.
He might be getting paid nothing and sleeping on the ground,
mm-hmm.
and that's his jam.
Mm-hmm.
But you going there and eating a meal there is not the same thing as selling everything you own, donating all the money to the temple, and then sleeping on the floor and
mm-hmm.
working for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like using your Apple iPhone is not the same thing as working in the factory, as a sweatshop on, minimum or less than minimum wage with the suicide nets. It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick Ross says that participating in the program is not the same thing. And I kind of view it like going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
People don't say, if I go to the gym, which I just went to the gym, I just come back. Going to the gym doesn't conflict. It doesn't occupy the same space as being a Hare Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So doing the Landmark Forum, to me, is of the same nature. I did the Landmark Forum for the first time in 2014. So it's been 10 years now. And I've participated as a participant in 3 Landmark Forums. I did it in 2014, 2016, 2018, because I became an introduction leader and I had an agreement to review the forum every 2 years, and I got a full tuition scholarship to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I paid for my first forum.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time it was, I think, 640 Australian dollars, 3.5 days. And then it includes the 10-session seminar. Now, if you work out the price of that, $640 divided by the 3.5 days, the number of hours in the course, and then the number of hours of coaching that you get in the seminar, it works out to be a few dollars an hour. And I've paid for coaches, I've paid for weekends that cost, five times as much as that.
Mm-hmm.
For a single weekend. Didn't get as much out of that weekend as I got out of the forum. It's extremely cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, people say that part of the reason why it's so cheap is because so many of the people who are involved in producing and managing the production of the forum are unpaid. So it makes it possible to deliver it at that price point. Just like Hare Krishna restaurants
Mm-hmm.
are generally quite low price relative to the rest. People can go there and get a really cheap meal.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like at Govinda's in Brisbane, it was like $10 or $12 for all you can eat.
Wow.
You could have a whole plate, this massive plate. Most people wouldn't want to eat more, but you could go back and get more if you wanted.
Yeah.
So that's only possible because of the structure behind it. So yeah, I did it 3 times, and then I participated as a on the production team a number of times. So I've been in like, I don't know, 5 or 6 forums, the complete forum, the whole forum, and then I've assisted as an introduction leader and an introduction leaders program participant in multiple evening sessions. And I was actually the production supervisor for an advanced course. So let's have a look at the Landmark Forum itself, doing the Landmark Forum as a Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything that you want to say about that? Or do you want to share about your experience with the Landmark Forum?
Well, as a human being, and it's always this thing of like hesitancy or kind of like don't believe that could happen. So that was the first thing for me, like, I don't think it's going to happen. They promise these breakthroughs and, making life this way and that way. It's like, I cannot believe that. But anyways, I did it. And then it was a big wide, my world has opened differently since then.
When did you do it?
Oh, I think that was a year ago.
It'll be 2 years ago now, 2022.
Oh, 2 years ago. Jesus, yeah. And
Krishna.
Oh God, Krishna. Yeah, so the powerful thing about this, like, because at that time I was already Hare Krishna and reading the books and hearing lectures and all of that. And then the distinctions they use to make a human being aware, or actually what it means to be a human being, and what every single human being are dealing in this world, all of these things, and then using the distinctions, you get to face exactly what you're dealing with and how to transform that. It was very powerful. Now, I'm not saying in Krishna consciousness that doesn't have any power to do that. And my observation is, I observe many people with, issues. Most of the people that comes to Hare Krishna, or all of the people, like any human being, they are not perfect. Their life is not working perfectly.
Well,
every single human being has something that doesn't work for them.
Yeah, like when you say people with issues, to be a human being is to have things that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's not that there are people who have issues and there are people who don't have issues, whatever issues means, right?
Yeah.
It's like people as a human being, you deal with things.
Yeah, we all deal. So there is no one in this world can say, no, I'm perfect. My life works perfectly. No one. And discovering, as a human beings, we're dealing with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Could be relationships, could be communication, could be self-esteem, could be confidence, could be finances, could be something in there we're dealing with and we don't just get through. So everyone is dealing with something.
There are people who can say that their life is perfect, though. And one of the things that you do get in Landmark's work is that this is it. That this is being taken out now. I participated for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to cut you off.
He needs a breakthrough.
Yeah. But just let me finish this point here, because I don't want people to be left with this. See, the thing is that the Isha Upanishad says Om Purnam Idam Purnam.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning of the Isha Upanishad. A translation of that, above Anuvad, is this is it and it's perfect. The supreme absolute truth is whole and complete, and emanating from the supreme whole complete perfection, everything that emanates from the supreme whole complete perfect being is whole and complete and perfect. And it's merely a angle of vision that has it show up for you as that it's not perfect. So generally for human beings, you could say the non-self-realized, unenlightened human beings, they can say that this is it and it's perfect. Everything is, they'll say, oh, it's all Krishna's will, something like that. It's all God's will. Everything is happening according to what he wants. But the reality of it is that we don't actually live that experience all the time.
Yeah.
The self-realized do. They're just like, everything is happening perfectly according to the Lord's will. This is from a Hare Krishna perspective. But the lived experience of life is not that. So although people they'll say that, but it lives in the level of what in Krishna consciousness is called jnana, or knowledge. It's not actually vijnana. It's not your actual experience of life.
Right.
So people can say that they're perfect.
Yeah, people can say anything.
Yeah.
And people are perfect the way they are as a soul, and whatever experience they're having is valid, because they're living in the world, whatever they're dealing in the world. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm coming from is, as a human beings, we all have anarthas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a human beings, we're dealing with that every single day. Could be our mood, could be our communication, could be anything, our confidence, our self-esteem, our self-talk about whatever. And that has having impact in different areas of our life.
I'm going to take this off.
Okay.
Not now.
Okay. And so we're dealing with something, we're experiencing something, pleasant and unpleasant every single time, maybe every hour, whatever, it's always changing. And what happened is, in my own experience, I've been going life just like, just doing it without actually stopping and looking at it like, is this something that I really want to do? Is this something that it gives me the experience of joy, happiness, all of those questions?
Now, when you say that, are you talking about the Landmark Forum or just in general?
My personal experience.
Of what?
Of my life.
Of life. Okay.
Of life.
Yep.
Okay. And for me not to look into that, and for me just to put it aside because it's too much to think through, it takes time to think through, it's just like, you know what, just occupy your life. Keep doing things, keep moving and keep doing. And then in that space, I lost myself and answering the questions that are very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And now what happens is, through the Landmark Forum, I basically is like, hold on a second, pause there, and ask the question myself, is this something that you really want to do? Is this something who you really want to be? Like, for example, like making the decisions in my childhood, that I wasn't aware of it. It was in my blind spot, according to the distinctions here in your blind spot. And that has been running my life all my years. And that had an effect in my relationships with myself, with other people, all of that. And my understanding without having the Landmark Forum was, things are the way they are, Krishna's in control, and Krishna can do whatever he wants, and it's fine. But with the tool that I learned from the Landmark Forum is, yes, Krishna's in control in everything, yes. However, I have the free will and I have the intelligence to pause and look at it and say, is this something that I want to achieve in my life? Is this something that is giving me the experience of joy, happiness, and freedom of self-expression? Then that is the real question to the material things, to my material entanglement of things. And that if I did not have this awareness, the discovery, that I could have been going through life, whatever, doing Krishna consciousness, just being resigned to the things. It's just what it is, and that's life how it is. Nobody else's problem. It is just how karma works. Everybody's problem, not my problem. Oh, it's my problem. There's nothing I can do about it. There's resignation behind it. And so that itself takes me to a future, that's my next life, And then I will continue working with this. And then imagine going life after life after life, just dealing with this, anartha.
But the promise of Krishna consciousness is just chant Hare Krishna, and then you don't have to worry about your next life or any of your anarthas or anything like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
However, my mind is a complete rascal.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind is creating so many things that is stopping me doing things that I really enjoy and that I really want to achieve in life, or have the experience of life that is like, I'm fine and content in here, because my mind is just generating things. My mind is making me see things this way when things actually are not that way. So every day I'm facing my mind. And facing my mind is not one of the easiest things. But now, when I do the Landmark Forum, the tools that I use is like looking at it, facing at it, and actually have a turn to the way that I wanted to, and a constant check and checking myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the powerful thing that I got from the Landmark Forum. And it's a really helpful tool, even in my spiritual life, it's like, what am I doing with my spiritual life? What is exactly the big meaning about spiritual life? I'm conflicted with all of the things that are happening in Krishna consciousness, these people and all of that. And through the Landmark Forum, I could say, okay, you know what? These people are human beings, and whatever they're doing it without having like a complete consciousness of what they do and what is the impact of that. Because probably they're just seeing what is in here in front of them, but not beyond that. Or maybe beyond that, but there is something in there that cannot have a breakthrough in their lives and just cut off from what they're doing. Like, for example, like this, we're going to touch this touchy topic of this son of the Swamis, perpetuating in the lives of the young children and destroying the life of these young children. And they've been going through many years doing this. And even in Krishna consciousness that is powerful, they did not have a breakthrough in that. And they continue doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed
Mm-hmm.
after some time of being in ISKCON that organizations have anarthas just like individuals do. So, if you really absorb your consciousness in Bhagavad Gita and this idea of like sve kamanya birata samsiddhim labhate nara, like every man can become perfect by following his own qualities of work. It's in the 18th chapter. Krishna says to Arjuna, now hear from me how this is done. And he says, by worship of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is the source of all living entities and who is all pervading, a man can become perfect. So, the Srila Prabhupada's analogy of like the watering the root and then all the leaves become satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
When you really think into that, it is that, just like there are all these different, and he would give the other analogy that by feeding, you take the food and you eat the food. So the hand brings the food to the mouth, and that way the hand becomes satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that the hand is part of an organism and it has different parts and they function together as a complete whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our experience of life, he says it's a diseased condition when the hand gets the food and tries to eat it itself.
Mm-hmm.
So in our experience as lived, we identify ourselves as something like individual cells that do not compose a complete whole.
Mm-hmm.
But this part of why it's impossible for a human being to not be in a cult is that we are not individual cells. Even if we look at it from an atheist perspective, this kind of scientific idea that human beings are social creatures, social animals. A human being cannot survive alone. Human beings and human civilizations develop and dominate other human civilizations to the extent that the human beings cooperate around some invisible center that coordinates all of their activities together. And according to the distinctions of Landmark, it exists for human beings in language. That's a more kind of advanced kind of distinction of understanding it. But human beings are part of a complete whole. They are always part of something. And I can't remember, how that related to what you said, but there was a connection there, but it's gone for me now. I mean, these are very, it's kind of, for me, it's really about kind of like being thoughtful, independently thoughtful about what it is that you're doing and what you're involved in. The Landmark Forum for me exists in a space that's, well, one way that it can exist for you is that it's in a space like doing exercise. You'll hear a conversation with devotees about diet. For example, Namras had this episode about how 60% of devotees or something, 40% are pre-diabetic. But that's not unique to the devotees. It's an artifact of like a Western lifestyle, not simply diet, but the lack of exercise as well. So typically devotees will only start to think about that kind of thing. They're just like, Krishna consciousness, you just eat Krishna prasadam and do the sadhana. And then at a certain point, they experience like health implications. Like, oh, I need to like do exercise and I need to like be conscious about my diet, because everyone, like being in a cult, every single human being is on a diet. Yeah. Every single human being has a diet. It's just undistinguished for them. People are saying, oh, I'm going on a diet. You're always on a diet. You just don't know what it is. So, for people who want, when I'm coaching men who are like going after their health and well-being, the first step is for you to accurately log exactly what you're eating now. You don't change anything. You just start, systematically logging exactly what you eat. You use an app like MyFitnessPal or something. So for me, the Landmark Forum, doing the Landmark Forum as a course, exists in that same kind of space. And, when people are like, oh, no, I see it as a competitor to Krishna consciousness, it's like seeing going to the gym as a competitor to Krishna consciousness. And lots of devotees actually do. They say things like, about that, like, oh, that you're not the body. That's just like, that's bodily consciousness. But it's just maintenance. It's like vacuuming your house. Why would you vacuum the house? You're not the house. You're falsely identifying with the house. No, you clean the windows. You make your bed. You brush your teeth. You go to the gym or go somewhere, go out into a park or whatever, and do some exercise, resistance training, aerobic exercise, and then this exists in the same kind of space.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I heard a lot of a lot of devotees saying, like, you're wasting your time and exercise. You should dedicate this in Krishna. Anytime you can die. It's like, yeah, sure, anytime I can die. However, it's in a health perspective, it's good to oneself keep themselves in check what they're eating, because at the end of the day, the body, and yet you have a body. And without your body, your soul cannot do anything that, carry on or complete what it needs to complete in this lifetime.
Yeah, it's like, I remember being in the, preaching center, preaching to people, you're not the body. And I remember someone said to me, well, prove it then, cut off your arm. I mean, an analogy is that you have a car and you drive the car, but you're the driver of the car. Now, if you just polish your car all the time and keep it clean, or another analogy is like the bird in the cage, but you're the driver of the car. If you just polish your car all the time, but you never attend to the driver of the car, well, you'll be very unhappy. But understanding that you're not the car, it's not like, well, you're telling me that I'm not the car. Prove it then. Smash the window of the car. How does that work? And the other thing is, like, it's not that you have a car and then you take care of the driver of the car, but you never service the car. You never get the mechanic to check the brakes and the oil level, transmission, all that kind of stuff. You never attend to that because you're not the car. So that's a misunderstanding of it. You're not the mind, you're not the body, but it doesn't mean you don't exercise. It doesn't mean that you're not deliberate about your diet and operating the body at its optimum. So for me, the Landmark Forum was a powerful conversation around the operation of the mind, pretty much.
It's basically the mind.
Yeah.
It's basically the mind. And that's something like, that's something I've been checking on myself. It's anything that happens, any circumstances or anything, you always making a decision about it. That is my personal observation and realization, of myself.
Mhm.
Like for example, there is no fresh fruits and vegetables there, and I decide, like, oh, this is boring. I don't want to cook.
Mhm.
I'm always deciding. And according to what I decide, also a mood goes with that. Your experience goes with that. And that can carry on for days and hours or forever. Or you, using the landmark forum distinctions, you cut it off and you recreate yourself.
Mhm.
Because the mind, it is like, Srila, I think in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, the mind is your worst enemy or your best friend.
The uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy, and the controlled mind is your best friend.
Yeah. And even that is in the Bhagavad Gita 2, I think, chapter 2, where he says, like the mind is flickering, stubborn, and all of that. So the qualities of the mind. And if you really, really look into your mind, how every day, every minute it is acting, and you are acting according to what your mind is saying, then you will have it's basically, it's subtle. The mind is subtle, but it's like when you are way more aware of that, it's like as you're watching it going, the decisions that I take and the experience that it's giving you. It is so potent because now with the distinction of the landmark forum, it's like, okay, that's my mind. This is my experience right now. And I'm making a decision about it. And the mind is going far, 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 at a year or later, it's making decisions on how it's going to look or how it's not going to look. What am I going to do? What I'm not going to do? Like the mind is like fast forward like this in seconds.
Mm.
And if you don't have those distinctions to help you out, you basically are a puppet of your mind.
Mm.
And then we blame somebody else, something else, or you make yourself wrong about it.
And when you're making yourself wrong about it, if you are that there's nothing that you can do about it, then you go into a breakdown. And a lot of times you'll make something in the environment wrong because, it's your, because there's nothing that you can do about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, most people are that they are the mind.
Yeah.
They can't distinguish the self from the mind. That's powerfully what gets distinguished in the forum.
Mm-hmm.
And not just as like a concept, but an actual experience, Vigyan. I was very impressed by how the landmark forum is designed and how it's delivered and what they're capable of achieving with people and simply in a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So that's why I became a leader at Landmark, because first of all, I saw that this is like applied Bhagavad Gita. It's the applied Sankhya. So let's talk about that. So we've been using this word distinction and distinguishing a lot, and that's a fundamental distinction at Landmark. And one of the conversations in the Landmark forum is precisely distinguishing distinction. So in Krishna consciousness, distinction is Sankhya. It means to bring something forth from an undifferentiated background. It means to distinguish things. Like a distinction in Krishna consciousness is that there is the self or the soul, the Atma, there is the intelligence, there is the mind, and then there are the senses. And then in between the soul and the intelligence is what's called ahankara, or the it's translated by Srila Prabhupada as the false ego. But if you have a look at the word, it is ahamkara. Kara means to do, to make or to form, like karma. And aham means I. So ahankara literally means like the I maker, making the I. That's another conversation. These conversations in the forum build on each other. So there's distinguishing distinction. What is distinction? Because in Krishna consciousness, you have these Sankhyas, but you don't necessarily know that this is a Sankhya. This is a discrimination. If you go really into the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, you understand that in order to be a valid Vedic school, you have to have Sankhya. You have to have a Sankhya.
Of course.
And then it's full of Sankhyas, and it's because the distinctions that you have at your disposal and the way that you distinguish the world has the world show up for you in a particular way. If somebody does not have, and this is the you are not the body, which is just a basic distinction in Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
And most people today in the West don't have that.
Yeah.
So a lot of your preaching, if you're doing like frontline preaching to brand new people, is you are distinguishing with them, you are not the body. And the conversation you have is, I have a hand, I have a nose, I have a head, I have a heart. But where is the I that has these things? Point to the I, and then they say, well, this is me. It's like, but you say my body. So what is the I that has the body? You are not the body. I have a mind. I have thoughts. I have opinions. So you're not the body. You're not the mind. You're not your thoughts. You're not the opinions. What are you then? So this is a basic Sankhya or distinction. So the distinctions that you have at your disposal are going to change the way that the world occurs for you, or the way the world shows up, the way you view the world, the way you interact with the world. But at no point in Krishna consciousness, in the standard kind of presentation of it, is Sankhya distinguished in that way. So there is a discussion about Sankhya yoga in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, which has the Sankhya of Kapila Dev, which is, 25 elements and a 25 elemental, a way of distinguishing the world into these 25 constituent elements, and how they're like categories. So and Sankhya literally means counting, and it means categorization. So these are the things that you can count. There are 25 different categories. Well, there are 3 categories. There's the soul, the super soul, and the holy name. That's like a Bhaktivinoda Thakur Sankhya. He says everything is temporary except for the self, the soul, that's eternal. And here's a basic conversation around that, which is that, you've had the experience of being a 5-year-old child with a 5-year-old mind. You now have the experience of being an adult with an adult mind. The mind and the body go together, but your experience of that is the closest thing that you have to yourself, because the soul is Satchid Ananda. It has 3 basic characteristics. It's eternal. It's full of knowledge, so it has experience. It's experiential. It is an experiencer of things. It is not what is experienced. That's from the Bhagavad Gita, the Kshetra and the Kshetragya. There is the field and the knower of the field. So anything that you know or have experience of is not you. You are that which experiences. And experiencing is a fundamental characteristic of your eternal identity. But although the body ages, you are simply experiencing the aging of a body. So these are all conversations that you have in Krishna consciousness, basic preaching, that are using Sankhyas, distinctions. But at no point in the presentation of Krishna consciousness is distinction itself distinguished in the way that I just distinguished it. So an early conversation in the Landmark Forum is distinguishing distinction. Now, as I'm sitting in the Landmark Forum in 2014, hearing this conversation, I'm integrating it with my knowledge and experience of Krishna consciousness. And I'm like, this is Sankhya Yoga. What is happening here is this is a conversation of Sankhya Yoga. First of all, the Sankhya of Sankhya, the distinction, because in philosophy, you have like epistemology. In Krishna consciousness, Praman. How do we know things? What are the ways of knowing? Hearing from other people, Pratyaksha, direct sense perception, Anuman, logical reasoning and inference, and Shabda is hearing from people. And then there's multiple, if you read the Tattva Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami, he goes into 10, I believe it's 10 from memory, or maybe 6 categories of hearing from people. Hearing from your parents, what everybody knows about something, like common knowledge, traditional wisdom about something. And then there's hearing from the self-realized sages and the scriptures, Shabda Praman. That's a specific subcategory of Shabda or hearing. And so these are all Sankhya's or distinctions. And then so the entire Landmark Forum is a set of distinctions, ways of distinguishing, particularly from a Krishna conscious perspective, the operation of the mind.
And the ego.
That's so that it goes distinguishing distinction,
Mhm.
and then superstition, distinguishing superstitions, and then the superstition of is and I.
Mhm.
And at that point there, you're in a conversation about the ahankara, the
Mhm.
I forming energy,
Mhm.
how it actually specifically operates in the experience of a human being.
Mhm.
So what's happening there is most devotees actually are that they are the body.
Mhm.
You know, when devotees said about, I competed in bodybuilding competitions out of my participation in the Landmark Forum and Landmarks program.
Mhm.
And some devotees criticize it, saying like, oh, you know, it's bodily consciousness. But my experience of it is that you cannot be effective in modifying your body if you are that you are the body, because you can't control your senses to the degree that you need to be able to do it. People's bodies are an expression of the activities that they take over time, and they're driven either by a deliberate program or simply by like what the body itself is asking for. And people are becoming pre-diabetic because, and I'm going to drop into a scientific kind of thing.
Okay.
Here's a narrative, a story about that. So human beings have bodies that are specifically designed for, adapted to, evolved to deal with an environment where there is a scarcity of carbohydrates available, even a scarcity of food itself, calories. So the human taste buds are designed that if you get access to dense carbohydrates, you're going to eat as much of them as you can, because you're going to store them up, because you might not get some for a long time. So human beings are actually adapted to intermittent fasting, like periods of not just like eating every day, but eating whenever and wherever they can get hold of something. So you take an organism that's adapted or designed for that environment and then place it in an environment where they have a surplus of calories, and particularly sweet, you know, carbohydrates. According to Ayurveda, that's sweet. Carbohydrates, they are. And then your tongue will drive you to consume as much of them as you can, but you're not adapted for that environment. Unless you can override that and operate according to, you know, regulative principles, you're going to become sick. That's why people are pre-diabetic. Anyway, that's a long riff for me.
Yeah. I think that the thing that is very powerful for me, and that I'm becoming a bit more immersed, I would say, aware, it's the fact that, you know, how we get to face our ego, our false ego, how our false ego has been playing up so much on us. And reacted to situations, relationship, conversations, you know, how the ego has been doing a lot of that false ego correction.
In landmark terminology, it's called your machinery.
Yeah.
Or your identity.
Yeah, your machinery, your identity.
So to map those two concepts, machinery and identity in landmarks distinctions maps to ahankara in the Sankhya of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
It's just another translation.
Yeah. So how that is, you know, in Krishna consciousness, for me, I know that I have a ahankara and a human being, and my mind works. This one is, you know, agitated and stubborn and flickering and all of that. But being present to that is a different story.
Being present to it, and also it's the parts of the operation of the machinery that you have not distinguished that are the ones that are controlling you and running your life.
Exactly. So by being present to that, it's a different story. Knowing it, that is running our life, knowing that it's, you know, like
makes no difference.
Yeah, all of that. Everybody has the knowledge about it.
Yeah.
You know, even in Krishna consciousness, people have the knowledge, like if you overeat sweets, you may get, you know, big. And also if you don't do anything about it for a prolonged time, then your system will be overloaded and start dysfunctioning and, you know, creating diabetes or creating this or creating that heart attacks or clotted arteries or whatever. And the long term, we all know that.
You know, when you say sweets,
Yes, yeah, so much sweets.
when I did Ayurveda, I did my first kind of Ayurveda courses with Dr. Leeladhar Gupta back in like 97. And he was distinguishing the 5 tastes. There are 5 tastes in Ayurveda. There's sweet, sour, salty, pungent, astringent, and bitter. So there are 6 tastes. And sweet means like not just like sugar, you know, lollies, you know, burfi, halva. It means, you know, there's rice, milk, bread, basically carbohydrates, right?
Yeah.
Carbohydrates are in Ayurveda sweet. And because we're just completely surrounded by available carbohydrates all the time, they don't show up for us as sweet. I remember when he was like, rice and milk are sweet. I was like, are you kidding? Like, those things are only sweet if you add sugar to them, because we actually can't distinguish the tastes accurately. We don't have like a correct sankhya of the tastes. So when you say eating too much sweets, it doesn't just mean eating dessert. In your main meal, where you have rice and you have et cetera, those are also sweets.
Yeah. Anyways, extra sweets. Let's put it sugary stuff.
Well, no, what you say is accurate, but it's just that it means all of the sweets,
All of
carbohydrates.
Yeah. Carbohydrates,
Too much carbohydrates.
And all of that. Anyways, so, and then, you know, health issues start appearing, and people at 40, they're already like developing pre-diabetes or pre-heart conditions or pre-blood pressure, or, you know, high blood pressure.
And now they start to be concerned about it, right? Now suddenly it's okay to be health conscious.
Right. Now, you see, even knowing that you do all of this will cause you in the long-term diseases, we still do it. And bam, here goes the distinction of the landmark forum. What is in there that you don't see that is running all of this? You know, people deal a lot with procrastination or doubting themselves, self-esteem issues, confidence issues. And you can find a lot of books about it. You know, to feel confident, you have to get up in the morning at the same time, develop consistency, and, you know, have a shower, put yourself beautiful or handsome, and go and exercise and all of that. You know, people that, and it can be a bit better, right? Better at this. But it actually doesn't allow them to be who they really want to be. And that's where the landmark forum has that access. Okay, you've been doing all of this, right? You've been exercising, you've been, you know, you want to be like charismatic in the world and talk to people, and you've been reading books, watching YouTube, or, you know, you got yourself a job where, you know, you talk to people, develop that confidence, yet that you're still dealing with this. I'm not fully confident in this area. I don't have access to that. Well, I'm feeling a bit better.
It's my karma. It's because of the Rahu period, right?
It could be your karma, whatever. But you know what?
But that's what devotees will say.
Yeah, that is their.
That's just my karma. That can't be changed.
That is their mentality. I have to tell you something. When I was calling devotees, all the things they said, you know, it's like, oh my goodness. It's like,
from a landmark perspective, it's rationalizations, reasons, and justifications for why things are the way they are. And, you know, as long as you hold on to those, they'll stay that way.
Exactly.
Because you're right that this is the way that it is, and I've got like a reason for it. You know, it's kind of like if you look back in history, that people saying like, man will never be able to fly. And then they'll have a whole thing about why you can't fly. And then, you know, it's like, why would you even try to build a machine to fly? Because it's impossible.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're right about that things are the way they are and that nothing can change, you will just, that's actually what makes it be that way.
Yeah. And that is the thing that in my conversations I observe, like they use the Krishna consciousness thing to solidify what it is.
Mhm.
And they really have good arguments, I have to say,
I'll tell you something about
like explanations, the books, the what number, what chapter, they have everything. They have the Sanskrit. I'm just like, right.
Mhm.
But that didn't help you in this area that you are struggling with. What is in there?
Yeah, I can tell you how that conversation will go when things start to get authentic. It's like, and you know that you're not actually following those things. And so in their mind, they're like, I have the answer. I just need to do these X things. I need to be reading. I need to be chanting. I need to do this and that. And the problem is that I'm not doing that. So I already have the answer and I just need to do it. And so after your conversation with them, they go, yeah, I already know what the answer is and I just need to do it, and I'm just not doing it at the moment. But they're not looking at like, okay, you know what to do and you're not doing it and you don't really know why you're not doing it. Because when you really distinguish what's at the source of you having a loss of power in that area, and I'm using the language of landmark here, what happens is that you actually get power in that area, freedom, self-expression. You can actually do it. It was in a evening session or seminar session. Joy Jalal was leading it when she was a seminar leader, and she said, people have that a lack of integrity plus an explanation equals integrity. And then they go away from the conversation. They're like, oh, yeah, I already know what to do, but I just need to do it. It's like, yeah, well, why don't you do the forum and discover what's stopping you from doing it? And then on the other side of the forum, you'll actually be doing it.
Yeah.
That was my experience of doing the forum. I didn't learn anything new in there. What it did was it gave me a couple of things. First of all, tools, distinctions to be able to distinguish the operation of my mind in areas that were previously invisible to my perception, my awareness. That was the first thing I got. It gave me I was sitting in there and in the conversations I was going, oh, I see. Because I could look back at my life and go, in the areas where I was being effective and things worked, that was how I was operating. And I can see that in the areas where it wasn't working, it was because I wasn't operating that way. But I couldn't see that before I went in there. And it gave me an access to, okay, I've got all of this knowledge and all this book stuff that I've read. I didn't learn anything more about carbohydrates, proteins, fats, exercise, controlling your diet. I didn't learn anything about that in the Landmark Forum.
And people, I mean, the leader doesn't tell you what to do.
Yeah. I got an access to why I have had a loss of power in doing what I know to do. And it's like, where does that fit in like, let's say, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness? Like an awareness of why you can't do the things that you know to do and you know that you can't do, but you don't know why you can't do them. And the key point here is that when you really distinguish what is in the way of you doing what you know to do, what happens is you now have the freedom to do it. If you have like, I know what to do, I know I'm not doing it, and here's the reason why I can't do it, and you still can't do it, you have not distinguished what is actually at the source of you not being able to do it.
And that is the thing, even today I was supporting my sister and the leader. She's so powerful that like the way she interacted, the way of being of that person, of that soul, is just like, I want to be like that. Like I just want to be like that. I don't know how many years these people has been training themselves.
7 to 12.
Yeah, but they are just so powerful.
But like if you're a senior forum leader, 7 to 12 to start to be a forum leader, and then there are forum leaders who have been leading for like 3, 4, 5, 20, 30 years.
40 years as well.
Yeah.
Now, the thing here that I want to get is like you were talking about the source. She asked the question, look for the source of everything. Now, even looking for the source of everything won't be possible. It's possible. You won't be able to see it. by yourself. And now I will bring the example that you brought. I know I have to do this. I know I have to eat less. I know I have to exercise. I know I already know all of this, and I know already about what the Gita says. I know all of that. Yet nothing happened about it. You know all of that. Nothing happened. So the question is, what is the source of it?
Mhm.
You say, people have explanation. My gosh, they have like volumes of explanations there. Yet, what is the source of the things that doesn't allow you to do or be the person you want to be?
Here's an interesting one for you.
Okay.
So Param,
Mhm.
my previous wife,
Mhm.
she was I think it was in Taiwan, and she went maybe with Devamrita Swami, I think, to a Buddhist, or maybe Radhanath Swami, maybe both, to a Buddhist kind of monastery place. And they were talking with the Buddhist monks there, like the senior Buddhist monks. And you know what they said to them, the Buddhist monks? They said, the problem with your movement, with ISKCON, is that you are giving people advanced knowledge too soon. That's what they said. You're giving people the advanced knowledge too soon. They're actually not able to realize it. You just give them the answers and they haven't discovered it for themselves. So if you look at, because you end up with this person who can cite all this stuff, but in their actual operation, their actions are indistinguishable from someone who doesn't know that. And they might be a person who's like doing kirtan, chanting, doing all these things, but when you have a look at their living of their life, their relationship with their wife, their relationship to their health and fitness, all those kind of things, that they might as well not know any of that stuff, because it makes no difference. And so in the Landmark Forum, it's constructed in a very, you could call it like an Eastern way. And not just the Landmark Forum, but the entire enterprise, all of the courses, everything. It's designed as discovery and inquiry. So it uses this idea of like koans, A koan is a question that, through the meditation on the question, over time, you come to realize some deeper truth, to see something in a way that you couldn't see things before, because the koan makes no sense at the level that you're operating. And so it leads to these kinds of insights and distinctions of the world, like the superstition, for example. A classic koan is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? No, one hand clapping.
Oh, what happened? All right.
What is the sound of one hand clapping? The answer to that you will get in the forum. Not just that they'll tell you what it is, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. Do the Landmark Forum, and you will actually discover for yourself that koan and what it reveals about reality. It's very profound. But it leads to things like, a superstition is only a superstition when it is not a superstition, and it is not a superstition when it is a superstition. That is a koan itself. And in a conversation pretty early on in the forum, that is the inquiry. That's the conversation. And people are grappling with that. What does that even mean?
Exactly.
It sounds like a contradictory, what happened there?
This is El Gato.
Yeah, it said El Gato. It's a contradictory statement. And Thomas Kuhn's The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. It's a famous book. He says in there that these contradictions, and this actually echoes Mao's on contradiction in the work of Engels as well, that contradictions at a current level of understanding are an indication that there is another higher level of understanding. Like in Krishna consciousness, the contradiction between abeta and beta tattva. Like, are we these individual organisms? Are we individual, or is there a oneness of everything? And the achintya beta abeta tattva doctrine is that it's simultaneously one and different. The answer is both at the same time.
Yeah, good point.
I thought you were tapping on my leg about something.
No.
So these contradictions revealed that there is another level of understanding. So in scientific understandings, they generate hypotheses and then theories. The limits of scientific understanding are revealed when they have like contradictory observations or contradictory predictions. Now, these especially show up in like the hard physical sciences like physics, when you get down to, things like, is light a wave or a particle? And it turns out that there's a contradiction that exists at that level, which means that our scientific understanding of the world is an intermediate understanding, and there's a level of understanding of reality beyond that. And things like quantum gravity versus classical gravity. At the limits of perception and understanding, contradictions exist. So in the Landmark Forum, you're presented with contradictions at the limit of your understanding of yourself and the world. And in the inquiry into those contradictions, you discover deeper levels of understanding. But it's through being in that inquiry that you do that. It's not just that they give you a book, here are the answers. And that's what people are kind of used to. They're used to just being and operating the way they've always been and operated, and then being given more knowledge about like, well, actually, the correct answer is that 3,337 angels can dance on the head of a pin. And it's like, no, it's 336,000, and then you have an argument about that. But it's like, it's meaningless. It's just a belief. You can change your beliefs, but it doesn't change anything in reality.
Exactly. And then even this reality, is that really a reality? Or what do you make a meaning that is a reality? It's so profound. It is like, I love it because my brain, the self, it's in constant inquiry about it, like every single thing. And sometimes life is quite busy that you don't continue inquiring into this. But when we have these conversations about this, like, wow, the brain is just like, for me, it's so enjoyable about it. Discussing about it. And it is so attractive as well. It is very attractive to pulls you to us to continue inquiring it, and this rediscovering and discovering. And when you discover things, like you keep discovering more things about the same thing that you discovered already. It is like it takes you to a different level. Now, the other thing about this, the Landmark Forum, is like, people have this, or the devotees, have this, they freak out. It's like, oh no, this is impersonalist, and it takes you away from Krishna and all of that. What's your opinion about it?
Okay, great. I was actually thinking that we'll go to the final conversation in the Landmark Forum on the Sunday night, which is the most confronting one for devotees.
And non-devotees.
Oh yeah. But particularly for devotees and integrating Krishna consciousness with it. It's at that point that they're like, okay, how do I integrate this? So I want to go back to the Isha Upanishad. So the word Upanishad means to sit down near to, and it's the idea of sitting down near to the master and receiving wisdom from them. So you sit at the feet of the master and they impart wisdom to you. Now, if you have a look at the Isha Upanishad, it is filled with koans. It has like, he is very near, but he is very far. He has no feet, but he moves faster than the wind. He has, I can't remember any of the other ones actually, but it's filled with contradictory statements like that.
Yeah, he's like, he's here, but he's not here. It's about Krishna being present here.
Yeah, let's
and actually, the creation, Krishna created this, but actually he's out of this material,
Yeah. I am everywhere, but nothing
nothing affects
all
me.
Things are in me, but I am not in them.
Yeah. So it's like, how is that possible?
I'm going to pull the Isha Upanishad up. It's a beautiful demonstration of this. So the first thing that we distinguished is that this is it and it's perfect, which has been taken out. Okay, I acknowledge that this is the second edition of the books, the second edition. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, although so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So yeah, that statement that's been taken out of the Enterprise, this is it and it's perfect, is a statement of that. Okay, so let's have a look at, here it is. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. Although in one place, he controls those who supply the air and rain. He walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything.
That one.
Any one of these, if you meditate on it, the contradiction in it, it will reveal something to you when you realize it. And so what they would do previously is they would give you this one thing: the Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. And then you would go away and like sweep the floor and wash the walls, and you would meditate on that while you were doing it until you realize that. And it could take you years. They wouldn't just give you the book and you read it and then you can repeat, oh yeah, the Supreme Lord walks and he does not walk. It's like, well, what does that mean? What's the implications of that? What does that reveal about reality? One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks and quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So people are like, oh yeah, I've meditated this, I've memorized this, and I know that, and I can repeat it. But then, what then can illusion or anxiety be for him? If you experience illusion or anxiety, you haven't actually realized that. You just know that. You can just repeat the words, but the words indicate something deeper. So the final conversation in the Landmark Forum, which is so confronting for devotees, is actually the realization on the court of the process of Sankhya Yoga, which let's find Srila Prabhupada talking about it, because when I was in that, I recognized it. I had studied and memorized a lot of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and so I was able to map it to it, but I was actually able to realize it as it was happening. So let's find this here. Well, this one looks interesting, and then we'll try this one here. Okay, so let me share again, present, share screen, and we'll look at this Bhagavatam dictation here. When is this from? 1977, right? Okay. Pradyumna. In fact, one commentator says some people try to find Brahman by neti. The Landmark Forum is Vedic Sankhya. It's Upanishadic wisdom packaged in a way for modern Westerners to realize it in the course of simply a weekend.
And the person who created this, the whole landmark distinctions and all that, probably he's not even aware that.
Well, no, he didn't create it. He packaged them.
He packaged. I don't think
it's a packaging. They're not created.
Yeah, okay.
They're discovered.
I mean,
they exist.
They exist, or they discover this, and they're not even aware that actually that exists, and they will punish it.
Most of the people who are participating in Landmark, including the leaders right now, do not know this about it. But I sat there and was like, I recognize this.
Me too. I was like, wow, this is like.
So Srila Prabhupada says this. This is not. If this is not, we'll go on. But what is it? This is called definition by negation. What is it? Suppose a statue. This is not what? This is not this. This is not this. So what is it? In logic, it is called definition by negation. So then Prabhupada goes on to give a number of negations, examples of it in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, najayate mridyate vakatachin, and nahanyate hanyamane sharire, is not born, does not die, cannot be cut by the wind, its definition by negation. So in the Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter, you are seeing like a conversation applying the neti sankhya definition by negation to the soul. It's the negative definition. It's the negative quality. We do not die. And Prabhupada is going into some other points about it there. And let's switch to this one. No, okay, that's a different point here. So the forum, the Landmark Forum, is the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the process of negation, like neti. It's the distinguishing of the functions of the ahankara until you get to the point where on the Sunday evening, There is literally, if you are on the court and you're engaged in the inquiry, you're not sitting there taking notes, to add more knowledge. No, you're actually doing the work and the exercises, washing the wall, sweeping the floor. And those exercises look like having conversations with people in your life. And I can explain more about the design of the forum, if we have some time here, because like you, I sat in that forum and went, how do they train these people, these leaders, to do this and to be this way? And I wanted to know, and that's why I took on doing all of the landmark courses and becoming a leader of landmarks work, to understand it. Not just simply to understand it, but to see how can you deliver that, because I already knew a lot of this stuff, but I couldn't do what this person did. But what happens in the forum is, over those 3 days, you go through the process of the inquiry, being in the actual inquiry into the koan and performing the actions that will give you an access to realizing at a deeper level until you arrive on the Sunday night. And where you arrive at is Brahman realization. Neti neti. You have distinguished everything about yourself that, you're like, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, but you operate in your life actually identifying with those things and identifying with aspects of those things that you don't even know are aspects. So all the aspects of the operation of the ahankara are distinguished up until the Sunday evening. And that conversation that happens there is a conversation that causes the realization of the self as distinct from all of that. And you know what that is? Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it literally is no thing. It is non-material. Non-material means that you are literally sitting there in the experience that I am nothing that I can experience. You have there's anything that you can experience is not you. And so on that Sunday evening, you literally, if you do the forum as it's designed, you will have the experience of Brahman realization. You're sitting there and you have boom in a moment. And I remember the experience of it. I was like, I can't believe this. Somehow they've managed to take the whole Upanishadic wisdom and package it and deliver it in such a way that they took 100 people off the street and took them to Brahman realization in 3 days.
I know, right?
Yeah, I was so impacted by it and the realization that I am no thing. I am not anything material. I am not this. I'm not that. I'm none of those things. That the experience was so impactful for me. And the other thing about it was, coming out of there, I had the same experience that Srila Prabhupada says, and Krishna says it in Bhagavad Gita. And I'll find you where Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita right now. So we'll go to library. Let me share the screen. Share the screen.
And the thing about this is, Landmark is not a religious organization or spiritual organization. However, the soul who discovered that, he is like,
well, the fact that people will have that concern about that and think that's religious, it's simply reality.
Yeah.
And that's why Prabhupada says this is non-sectarian and it's a science. So I'm going to search for this. It's in Bhagavad Gita, but I don't know exactly where it is. So I'm going to search. And I'm going to search for unmanifested. And I think difficult is the word I'm looking for. And then I'm going to, okay, 635 to 45. So I'm going to filter by hierarchy here. Here we go, 12.5. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied, because it is the nature of the Satchidananda experiencing unit to identify itself with something. And so, although you get the experience of Brahman, you walk out and immediately, and this is what they say about why the advanced course, the material identification comes rushing back into the space of nothing that you have become. Well, not that you've become, that you always are, but that you just got direct experience of.
You just realize it.
I have a landmark, I have a number of landmark books, which are short essays by landmark forum leaders, and Balvinder Shodhi, I think that's his name, or Balvinder Singh, Balvinder Shodhi, I think he's an Indian forum leader, and he has one that's called A Transformative Encounter with Nothing.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Even the title is interesting.
The individual soul is embodied since time immemorial. It is very difficult for him to simply theoretically understand that he's not the body. Therefore, Bhakti Yogi accepts the deity of Krishna as worshipable, because there's some bodily conception fixed in the mind, which can thus be applied. worship maybe saguna or nirguna. So for a devotee, there's no difficulty in approaching the Supreme immediately and directly, but for those who are following the impersonal way to spiritual realization, the path is difficult. To have to understand the unmanifested representation of the Supreme through Vedic literatures as the Upanishads, and they have to learn the language, understand the non-perceptual feelings, and realize all these processes. In the Landmark Forum, they have packaged and delivered this in 3 days. It's epic.
It's powerful.
It's not very easy for a common man.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing about that is that it's not that the Supreme is not impersonal. The Supreme is no material personality, and this is the Ishopanishad. The Ishopanishad says, although he does not move, he does not leave his abode, he moves faster than the wind, faster than the mind. The Supreme is impersonal and personal. And so the realization of the self as non-material, as no thing, takes you to the level of impersonal realization.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience of it was so profound. I was like, I have theoretically known this, and I've never had this. Well, actually, I have had experience of it. I previously had that experience by taking magic mushrooms. Completely the experience of nakanshati shochati, no desiring and no hankering, no lamentation, in other words, no impetus to perform any material activity.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely like, there is nothing to do, there is nothing to attain in this world, and just sitting there with nothing to say and nothing to do,
mm-hmm.
and just going, well, now what? Nothing. There's literally nothing to do here.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience of it was so profound
mm-hmm.
coming out. And also the experience of how transitory the experience of it is for an embodied living entity,
mm-hmm.
that I got this tattoo on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, is there a way I can physically remind myself of this experience that had happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced it. This tattoo is shunyata, it's the void. So the void is a real thing in the sense that it is actually not a thing. Mm-hmm. It is the experience of no thing, no material thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the ability to remain fixed in that experience for an embodied living entity is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep trying to regenerate that experience, get yourself back to nothing in Landmark's terms, and they have a technology for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the leaders who are leading the programs are constantly using that technology to bring themselves back to nothing,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then create something in the space of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So in the space of nothing on the Sunday evening of the Landmark Forum, I created being a devotee of Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Yeah.
And from that, I got an insight into Rupa Goswami's argument for why Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not Rama, and not Nrsimha, not any of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And his argument for that, from the Nectar of Devotion, is that Krishna is very expert at playing the flute. Krishna is always surrounded by his cowherd friends and his associates, and he displays
the mood of a child.
Yeah, the child, but the enchanting childhood pastimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you look at that in the space of nothing, it is simply a choice. It's not a philosophical tattva truth. It is a rasa. And that is why Anupam, the brother of Sanatan and Rupa, even after having so many philosophical explanations given to him, said, look, I got everything that you guys said and all that, but like, I just can't give up Ram as my worshipable deity.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond tattva, beyond philosophical understanding,
mm-hmm.
once you get to the space of nothing,
mm-hmm.
there is the experience of the non-material, and rasa exists there.
Mm-hmm.
Taste, relationship. But, anyway.
Connection.
Yeah, that was my experience of it. And so for me, being a devotee of Krishna exists as a conscious choice from nothing. It's not that, no, you have to believe it because it's the truth, and these books say that it's the truth. And that was always, for me, it's not even convincing from a logical perspective, because the praman or the epistemology, well, the shastras say, okay, but why do you accept the shastra?
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, for you to be real and authentic about what's going on, it's like, because I say that the Shastra is the thing that I accept. There's no argument. You can't have an argument based on scripture about why scripture is the supreme source of authority.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to accept scripture as authoritative, the individual must make the statement, the declaration, I accept this as authoritative. And there is an argument against every single argument that you can advance as to why that is so. And so at the ultimate level, it's like, like this is, see, in a car, Srila Prabhupada is driving, and I think it's a journalist who's interviewing him, or someone in a conversation says to him, what would you do if you found out that Krishna is not God? And Srila Prabhupada says, I just keep doing the same thing because I'm happy. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshavāgamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartamavyayam. He says, Pratyakshavāgamam Dharmyam, it is the perfection of religion because it provides direct perception of the self through realization. Pratyaksha, direct perception.
Mm-hmm.
So we say that Shabda is the ultimate praman in Krishna conscious philosophy. But when you look in Bhagavad Gita, it comes down to your direct experience.
Mm-hmm.
Your direct experience is the ultimate praman.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna consciousness, all the arguments and everything are supporting arguments. They're for the Madhyama Adhikari. Therefore, in the realm of like you're caught up in the mind and reason. And so when a devotee goes into the landmark forum and that constitutes their level of realization of Krishna consciousness, it's social pressure,
Mm-hmm.
it's belonging to a cult,
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a group of people that I know and they give me, they provide me with, a social group,
Mm-hmm.
and I like doing the things. And when they encounter that,
Mm-hmm.
it can become confronting.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the bottom of everything, when you're having a conversation with someone, you say, well, the Bhagavad Gita says this. And they say, well, why would I accept the Bhagavad Gita?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at it, Prabhupada says the way of understanding the Gita is given in the Gita itself in the way that Arjuna accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Mm-hmm.
Because Krishna says that he is. And he just takes it at face value. So therefore, one should at least theoretically accept this.
Mm-hmm.
It's your theoretical acceptance of it and the experience that you have when you try that experiment on that constitutes the reality of Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not at that level, or if you're unwilling to own that level of your own Krishna consciousness and your participation in it,
Mm-hmm.
you will find going to the space of Brahman
Mm-hmm.
confronting.
Mm.
Because all of your participation in Krishna consciousness is actually material.
Mm.
It's constituted through your identity and your material, the things that you identify with materially. And that can be very confronting for people.
Mm-mm. Yeah. It's a long explanation.
It is, but it's a very deep topic, and we've had 10 years of meditating on it and going further into it.
Okay.
I think we should break this conversation up into 3 parts then. So we talked today about doing the landmark forum, and then the other 2 that come after that is doing the other landmark courses. Because look, I'll just be straight up. The reality is that the landmark forum, even though it takes participants to the Brahman platform in 3 days, it's basically a brochure. It's a pamphlet. It can provoke profound experiences and transformations in people's lives, but it really is just like this shows you what's actually possible using this technology.
Mm-hmm.
But to sustain that,
yeah,
over time requires you to solidify and to come to a more integral posture with it. And so the design of the curriculum is it's designed to help you to solidly integrate this.
Mm-hmm.
I think Krishna consciousness and the landmark forum, the landmark curriculum go well together. Then there's the next level, which is our 3rd conversation. So I think we should split it into 3.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Yeah, the second one will be about doing the curriculum, the whole curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And I would include the communication courses in that.
Oh, it's powerful.
Yeah. And then becoming a landmark leader or joining the cult, which is another level of the whole thing. And so that's another thing to look at as well. A 3rd conversation.
Yeah. And you know what, these tools from the landmark forum are applicable in any time of life. and bring the landmark form, or using the landmark form, the landmark distinctions or technology into Krishna consciousness, it will be kaboom. It will take it like to a next level. Not only people will be such amazing leaders, like powerful leaders, also their relationship with Krishna and what they up to in this life, which basically many people wants to make a difference in other people's life, right? And serve Krishna in such a way that is profound, it will make a great difference there. Not only in that area, also in their personal life and their relationship and their life in their circle. And people, like, these days what we have is we have all of these leaders that have been, pretending to be leaders or swamis and doing whatever. And they doing this, the Lama Forum, they will get themselves into this, like, the reality of themselves in their lives. Why they doing this? It will open a new world for them to be the kind of leader they want to be, for all of these people that are basically, having or want to experience a different type of life in Krishna consciousness. They will become way powerful than they already are.
I don't doubt that. It's a contribution. It's like Venugopal, who introduced me to the Landmark Forum. He said to me, Siddhapati, you are already up to a whole lot of stuff. This will be like putting rocket fuel in your engine. And it was, and it is. I won't say I got my life out of Landmark. No, but like I got access to new levels of power. I wasn't like ineffective in life before that. Generally speaking, people were like, oh, you were already doing amazing things before that. But there were areas where I had a reliable loss of power and was ineffective and could not do anything about that. And I had at least enough introspection to be able to acknowledge that and to be open to something that said that it could show me what was in my blind spot in those areas. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, and also, not only that, it's a constant discovery for yourself. And it's a constant, like, it requires you to utilize those tools to keep yourself aligned for who you really are. Because, the baggage is there, the past is there, or the anarthas are there, and they will always pop out their head. But you have the tool to just, do the magic wand to remove it.
Yeah, it operates on this level because you said who you really are. And people say like, oh yeah, das anudas. I'm a servant of Krishna, servant of the servant of Krishna.
Not even that. They know they're the soul. But they don't have the connection, the powerful connection to say, I am the soul and this is who I am, and create themselves every single day. They have no access to that.
People can say that, but
yeah, can say that. Yeah. No, they know that. But there is a difference of knowing and actually.
I want to point to something here. Let me point to something here.
Sure.
This is the stack of conversations in the second day of the forum, superstitions, then the superstition of I and is. So they say, I am a servant of Krishna, but this doesn't go to like, the I am, and then what do you insert into that next part? Where the Landmark Forum takes you to look is not at the I am a Christian, I am a Muslim, I am a Hindu, I am a servant of Krishna. It takes you to look at the I. When you say I am a servant of Krishna, what is it that you're identifying as I? The I that is a servant of Krishna. Because people identify the I that is a servant of Krishna with the mind and the body, because that's where their level of identification is.
Yeah, that too. But even though they know they are the soul and they have the qualities of the soul, blissful, okay, so explain in English, Satchitanandana, blissful, eternal, and the cognizant, and the all qualities, the qualities of the soul, ever joyful, ever confident, ever this, ever that. This is the qualities of the soul, yet they are not living it.
Yeah, because
because the knowing makes no difference.
Mhm.
But the discovery about who they really are in this lifetime and the connection with that, who they really are, is not possible yet.
Yeah, well, even if you look at that description of the self, it's Satchit Ananda. It's not any of these other, if you're sitting there in the Landmark Forum on the Sunday evening and you have this transformative encounter with nothing, what's happening there is you're sitting in the experience of the eternal present, the power of now, from Eckhart Tolle. You're sitting in the experience of just that I exist and I'm experiencing something. And that's all you are. You are no thing. You are that which is experiencing. You're not a man, a woman. You're not what you thought, any of these things. You're not any of these ideas that you've had that are not even ideas. They're realities of ahankara, that I'm shy, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I'm not good at that. All of that is gone. And you have this direct encounter with yourself as Satchit Ananda.
Mm-hmm.
You're not any of those things. That is very confronting for people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people find very confronting, because for the embodied living entity to have that experience, it's like they want to grab onto the I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, I am this, I'm that. Oh, I'm just that way, like, yeah, I'm a servant of Krishna, but I'm just like this or that. But you're identified with some aspect of the yantra or the machinery.
Mm-hmm.
The yantra literally means a machine. So it's Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantra Rudani Mayaya. The Supreme Lord is present in the heart of all living entities, O Arjuna. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
And he is directing the wanderings of the living entities who are seated on the material body as a machine made out of material energy.
Mm-hmm.
The yantra includes the body and the mind. The entire yantra, the machinery, the identity, the material identity gets distinguished over the 3 days of the forum. And you're left with no thing, nothing. You are nothing material. And then, the idea that you're going to use this philosophy of like, that's impersonalism. You're just trying to hold on to your material identity.
Mm-hmm.
You are it's like, why would you resist that if you actually realize the philosophy? If you read it, it simply says, you are no thing. You're not this, you're not that. It's all through all of it. It's Upanishadic wisdom realized in 3 days.
Mm.
And then what's beyond that? Well, Krishna consciousness is beyond that, but you can't negate or deny like a fundamental kind of foundational experiential reality of the process of Krishna consciousness and say, well, I'm beyond that. It's like, well, why do you have a problem with it then? You are no thing. That's like a foundational chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. You know your hands.
Yeah, you know your mind, you know your identity.
You know your false ego.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's the Landmark Forum. I think that's the most confronting thing for devotees to integrate, and it's not incompatible in any sense, really.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I love this, they say, and so, finally, we made all of this up. None of this is the truth. Yeah, because it's not, because all of those things that are pointing to look at pointing for you to see something when you look over there, that thing that is pointing you to look there is not the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is what you discover when you look where it is pointing, because then it just becomes a religious belief. I believe this. It's like, but have you tried looking over there? No, I don't need to, because I know this and I believe it and I can repeat it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. It's when you indicate and you look there and you find there are, Srila Prabhupada talks about that, that one can, and it's a common Eastern understanding that one can indicate the moon by pointing to a tree branch and say, look where the tree branch is, and then look beyond that and you'll see the moon. Mm-hmm. It's not the tree branch that is indicated. It's not the hand that's pointing. Mm-hmm. It's not even the statement to look there that is indicated. Mm-hmm. It is the act of looking and then discovering beyond the tree branch, the moon. And that's the Landmark Forum. It's not a religious belief. It's a very well packaged, designed, and delivered experiential Upanishadic, Upanishadic wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that nothing of this is true.
no, but what does that mean? Like, does it mean that it's not true that, and people get...
Yeah. Can you see the mind?
Yeah.
The mind just concocts, speculate a lot of things, and you make a decision out of it, out of fear, out of whatever. And nothing of this is true. Who is it? Who is the whole, the absolute truth? Is Krishna.
Yeah. And that's a creation. Like Anupam, Rupa, and Sanatan, they're not aligned on that. Anupam didn't align on that with them.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And Prabhupada's like, you could take away all of the logical arguments and all of the this, that, and the other thing, and I'd still keep doing the same thing because I like it. Prayaksha Vagamam Dharmyam, direct experience is the ultimate praman. Not the mind, not logical arguments, not shastric statements. They're all indicating, pointing you to something. So when devotees do have that experience in that conversation, there's nothing wrong with that. That's simply a confirmation of what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. It is very difficult for the embodied to sustain the realization of the unmanifested, because you're doing it through your body and through the experience of your body, which includes the mind. And so Arjuna's talking about that all through the Gita. And so that's all that happens in that conversation for devotees, is they have the experience, like Krishna says, and for all human beings, they have that experience right there, that it's very difficult to sustain that and to remain in that space of nothing, because you're an embodied living entity. Drop the mic there. Boom. Okay, we'll be back with parts 2 and 3 of this. Part 2, we're going to talk about doing the advanced course, the seminar, and then, the self-expression and leadership program, the communications courses. And then in the third one, we're going to talk about joining the cult and becoming a cult leader, becoming a landmark leader and being trained in how to deliver the programs. And that's also another experiential, transformative thing. So we'll talk about that in episode 3.
Oh, yes.
Anything you want to say to finish?
People to be open-minded. Like the leader was saying, don't live in this world that you created yourself, and you cannot be beyond that. Like, be open-minded.
And then
and with the mood of discovering what is there for me.
Yes.
Because so far we already created our world of, like, this is the way it is because, my culture, my religion, or my this or my that. You just made up your own world, and you're so scared to get out of this and be inquisitive about, or curious about what else is in there that I don't know. Yeah.
And then, just kind of as a foreshadowing for episode 3, Landmark is an organization and the training structure that trains the leaders to lead this work is founded in this transformative technology of getting to nothing. And as I said earlier, organizations have anartas, just like individuals do. And Landmark also struggles with, this is a foreshadowing, this is my assertion, that it struggles with the same thing, that to remain in nothing is impossible, very difficult, next to impossible for the embodied living being. And so there is a something there that comes into the space of nothing. It's unavoidable. And it's when that something is not distinguished as something that it becomes like a blind spot. And so you always have to be actively distinguishing what is the neti, what is the thing that I'm not? What is this thing that is a something that is in there that's not a deliberate creation? Like, you can deliberately put in there, I am a devotee of Krishna. You can deliberately put in there, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. Okay, that's us for today. Thanks for tuning in. Shout outs to Metro C for the Dandavats. Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We'll be back for the next episode. We'll schedule it with a little bit more time in advance so people can have time if they want to watch live and comment.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. But
okay. Param Vijayate.
Anyways.
Yeah, you can leave comments and questions, things you want us to cover, your own reflections and realizations. There are a number of devotees who've done Landmark's work. They'll have their own take on it. That's just our take. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Yay.